So what do you do when you struggle with binge eating and it seems like no matter what changes you try to make to your nutrition plan, no matter what diet strategy you try to motivate yourself, you try to summon all the willpower that you can, but you can't stick with it. You know, maybe you make some changes and you go good for a week or two or maybe a month, but then before you know it, it's like you're falling back into old patterns of eating, making the wrong food choices, and then it's like you keep having to start over. And before you know it, any of the progress that you made, you've lost, and you're right back where you started. That's what I wanted to share today because this is something that I've struggled with myself. It's something that a lot of clients I work with over 20 years struggled with as well. We keep trying to treat it, binge eating, like it's a food problem. Or we start to think it's a motivation problem, right? We blame ourselves for not having enough willpower or discipline. How many times have you told yourself, I need more motivation if I could just stay motivated, right? And I think that's the first thing that we have to understand is it's not a motivation problem. It's not a willpower problem. It's not a food problem. And it's not a lack of knowledge problem. It is something that I've come to learn is what I call a threat perception problem. The reason why we make poor food choices and we binge and struggle with all of these things is because our brain is hardwired to keep us safe. And when it comes to food, a lot of times the thing that feels safe and comfortable for us is making the wrong food choices. And that's what we'll be led to do, even though eating the wrong foods, making bad food choices over the long term can actually be a bigger threat to our survival, right? But in the immediate sense, the brain is just concerned with get to safety. And so a lot of times that's what happens. We find ourselves, late at night, we're raiding the cupboards, getting in the refrigerator, making bad food choices one after another, no matter how much we try to motivate ourselves and no matter what changes we try to make. Because again, we can't change the problem at the level of trying to control food. We have to change it by basically sending different input to our brain that communicates safety rather than threat. We've got to calm the perception of threat down. What I wanted to share here is kind of a process that has worked really well for me because, like I said, I struggle with this myself. And one of the biggest areas that I've had to tackle was weekend binges. I would eat about 5,000 to 5,500 calories, and this is just in one evening. Then I would struggle during the week with cravings, and that would lead to more binging, and it was just this ongoing cycle. So I had to learn how to get my brain to process information different, to basically calm the threat down so that I could make better food choices. This is something I had to work with clients with as well over the years. And so what I've learned was kind of a process of making change. So when it comes to like making better food choices, I think the first thing is that number one, you got to identify the stage of change that you're in, because we can't make any changes that we're not prepared for and that we're not committed to. Are you in a contemplation stage where you're thinking about making changes? You might want to make changes, but maybe you're not actually committed to it. You're not actually ready in a place where you're ready to make these changes. If you're in a contemplation stage and you try to all of a sudden overhaul your diet and make all these changes, it's not likely to stick, right? Because you're not ready for it. You're not at like the commitment level yet. So contemplation or commitment, where are you? If you're in a contemplation stage, then I would say like, what can you commit to? Maybe you're not ready to make all the changes right now, but what changes can you make right now? So there might be some level of change that you can make to help kind of nudge yourself there, or until you get yourself to a place where you can make more changes. Second step is you got to fill the gaps, right? So what I mean by filling the gaps is, taking all like the junk food out and trying to overhaul your diet just creates a bigger gap. So when we make more subtle changes, then it kind of fills the gap a little bit more. There's not as big of a gap, and the less of a gap there is between the behaviors that you're doing now and what you're trying to do, the easier it is to make make those changes stick. When the brain perceives threat, the higher the threat level it is, the more likely we are to sabotage ourselves, especially when it comes to food. So if you try to completely overhaul your diet and go from like eating, bad food choices, not being able to stick consistently with your diet plan, and you try to take all that away and you're trying to be perfect with some diet plan, it's almost like it's going to create this big threat response in the brain that's going to make it even harder to stick with the diet, and it's going to make you more susceptible to sabotaging yourself and going right back to your old behaviors. So instead of trying to overhaul it and be perfect with it, make all these changes at once, a lot of times it's just better to make some changes, right? It's almost like, making little bit of changes at a time, not trying to completely overhaul everything. And that way, even if it means that you're still eating some of the foods that, you probably shouldn't be eating, but it communicates to your brain a sense of safety. So it keeps the threat level lower, and it allows you consistently over time to still make better food choices, and then to continue to make more changes as you're ready for it. And finally, the third thing is that it's understanding that these changes take time. It's not like we're going to go from where we are to where we want to be, having perfect behaviors and eating the right foods all the time. There should be things that we enjoy, because if it's something that you don't enjoy, you're not going to stick with it very long. Allow time for these changes to happen. Don't look for perfection with things either. Keep things enjoyable and look for progress, because a lot of times what happens is changes happen in layers. It's like, making one change here, one or two small changes. Then once those become habits, then we can make another one or two changes, and it happens over time. It's like looking for progress. If you're making progress, then you're going to get to your goal. Yeah, it might take a little bit longer, but you're still going to get there, and it's going to be most likely a lot more enjoyable along the way than trying to be perfect. Trying to have everything dialed in and always be locked in, and thinking like you can never have this food that you enjoy and everything's just got to be like 100% all on all the time. It's going to create a lot of pressure. And like I said before, it's going to make it a lot less enjoyable. It's going to create more threat in terms of the response from the brain, and it's just not, it's going to be like it's this constant grind. You don't want to set yourself up doing something that you're not going to enjoy and something that you're not likely to be able to sustain over the long term. So again, look for progress, not perfection. So hopefully this helps give a little more insight into the process of making behavior change, especially when it comes to binge eating. It's not something that's a food problem, a willpower, or motivation problem. So, maybe it's time to kind of change the way that you're addressing the issue. And instead of addressing it like it's a food or a motivation problem, instead understanding it's a threat perception issue, and deal with it at the level of the brain and trying to calm the threat down. Because I think that you'll find that it works a lot better. You'll have more success that way, and it's more sustainable long term. It will help you get where you want to go. So that's all I've got for now. Let me know in the comments below which of these ideas that I shared really stood out or connected with you. And what have you tried? Have you tried anything with this? How has it worked? Let me know, and I'll talk to you next time.